Just be glad for all you have that's in today.
Hey everyone, Connie here, and welcome to my blind reaction to OKKO Let's Be Heroes, episodes 26 through 28. So last time we only reacted to one episode, and that was the TKO double-length special. And I mentioned last time how not only was it just a generally good episode, but it was, I feel like, a really important stepping stone for the series. Because this show kind of has been going in the way that I feel like Steven Universe was going at first. Really silly, kind of inconsequential stuff going on, with little hints here and there of an actual big story coming somewhere down the line. And last episode really kicked things off. We had a mysterious character in the shadows who might have been that, someone mentioned his name to me, but I think it was like Professor Venomous or something. It might be him, it might not be. But we saw him, like, basically bring out the rage in KO, causing him to become TKO instead. And this was a big deal because, one, it allowed us to see the full, well, at least what we can assume to be the full lengths, or the full, let's just say the full power that KO can muster. We saw that he is actually extremely powerful to ridiculous levels, but that KO himself has just been unable to access that power up until becoming TKO. By embracing his anger, it allowed him to sort of unlock that power all at once. However, obviously KO does not want to be that way, so he fought back and brought himself back to his normal self. But I think we're going to start having him learn to use his power as just KO as well. So this is definitely kicking off something. We've also had glimpses before of past event involving Carol, Gar, and possibly some other friends of theirs. The past event, I think it involved a burrito or something silly like that, but it was like framed in this extremely dramatic fashion. We've had, I think it's happened twice where we've seen a hint at that now, and that's definitely coming. We've also had a bit with this. We've had an episode, well, technically two, that have featured this character who was a friend to what's-her-face, whose name is escaping me right now. Oh my gosh. I hate it when names escape me, you know? Enid. We saw Enid's friend, and her name was, like, Eloise or something like that. We saw, like, one episode where it kind of explained their past together and showed how she had become, ever since, betraying Enid, even though we kind of got a glimpse that she actually didn't, and that she never forgot their friendship. And that the entire reason she even went to Lakewood Plaza Turbo in the current day was to see Enid again. And there's definitely more to that storyline that we just haven't gotten yet. So I'm really excited to see if that comes up in the future too. So it's building stuff, and it's been building stuff for with its characters and with its story, and I'm really enjoying how this is working, because Steven Universe, again, did the same thing. And as I mentioned last time, it is Ian James Quarterly who created this series, created OKKO. And he did work on Steven Universe. I don't know if he actually still does or not, but he at least did. And so there's definitely that connection. And I'm hoping that OKKO ends up being one of those shows that can follow in Steven Universe's influence to a certain degree, but not completely. Because Steven Universe has taken some really bad turns, especially in the recent season, to the point where it's actually become really irritating. And I'm hoping that OKKO kind of learns from that kind of stuff and doesn't quite go in that same direction. I'm really hoping that it really, like, doesn't try to make these overbearing changes and ideas to it. It just keeps itself very, very simple with it. And so far it seems like it's going to. But, what is this on my shirt? I noticed that, but weird. I get distracted easily. Sorry about that. But either way, I am excited to see more of this. And hopefully it will give us something to really look forward to. Now, I don't know if these episodes, I know nothing about them. I don't know if they're going to connect to the previous episode, TKO, or if they're going to have anything big for the future. All I'm hoping for is Shannon. I just want Shannon to return. It's been so long since I've seen Shannon in the show, because we took that hiatus from the show for a while, and she hasn't appeared since we've returned. We had the one other robot. Actually, both of the other robots. We had the one overly ridiculous, egotistical one doing the dance off against Rad. I can't think of his name right now. And then we had the just silly one, the silly, overly goofy one, whose name I cannot think of for the life of me. But we had both of them. Probably the reason I can't think of their names at the moment, I mean, I couldn't think of Enid's either, but to be fair, probably the reason I couldn't think of their names is because I don't really care for them that much. I can remember Shannon's name because Shannon's one of my favorite characters in the show. But it's like, even with Enid, I'm not super huge into Enid. I mean, I liked her when I first started the series, but then she kind of went downhill for me after a point. And those of you who have been watching these reactions know when that was. Either way, I do have a lot of stuff to get to because just this week has been really hectic and I have been unable to pre-record stuff for this weekend yet. It is Thursday. Tomorrow's the mega stream. I have not been able to pre-record this stuff for the weekend yet, so I have to get to that stuff today too. Or either that, or I'm going to be doing it on during the weekend, and I really don't want to do that. So we got to get this started. We got to get this going. So in the meantime, yeah, I know nothing about these episodes. I don't know if they're going to continue off of things, but I'm really hoping for the best. So when the screen fades to black, pause this redirect and go to the description below. Follow the link to the reaction, and after you watch it, come back here to the redirect and resume play. Because after it fades to black and then fades back in, everything from that point forward will be my afterthoughts, and will contain spoilers to the episodes. So that being said, thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you at the reaction. So, we are back, and we will begin with spoilers in 3, 2, 1, now. It's always funny to me whenever this happens. You hear a voice and it's like you know who it is, but you can't place it. And then when you find out it's so super obvious, it's like you feel like an idiot for not being able to, place it. And on top of that, it's not only just so super obvious. It's like it's someone you should recognize, especially because of how much you've been getting more into their work lately. Mr. Cardsley is voiced by fucking Clancy Brown. Also known as Mr. Krabs from SpongeBob, but more notably for me, he is also Hank, Detective Hank from Detroit Become Human. One of my favorite characters from that game. And on top of that, it's one of my favorite games of all time. And it's so super obvious. Now I look back at it, it's obviously him. But it's like, I just couldn't place it. That's kind of hilarious to me. But let's talk about these episodes. So the first episode was boring as fuck. I'll be honest. The first episode here was not only the worst one of these, I'd say it's one of the weakest episodes of the show. The entire concept of the plot was boring. it didn't work. It wasn't entertaining in the slightest to see Boxman struggle with not attacking the plaza. It wasn't funny at pretty much any point. I think the funniest thing in the episode was when Shannon knocked Daryl off the ledge. I think that was the funniest thing about the entire episode. Although I'll admit our heroes at the end were pretty entertaining, but the majority of the episode was excessively boring, uninteresting, and unenjoyable. I didn't care about Boxman's struggle in this. We have no reason to care about his struggle in this. We have no reason to feel sorry for him. We have no reason to be on his side. And honestly, that's what this kind of episode requires. You need to be able to sympathize with the character who's going through this kind of struggle. Even if they're a villain. And there have been cases in multiple shows, movies, games, etc., where the villain has gone through a struggle like this and you actually do feel sorry for them. I mean, a huge example of this, Harley Quinn from Batman the Animated Series. Every time, yeah, she does villainous things, but every time you see how the Joker treats her, you feel legitimately sorry for her. So when she's going through a hard time, you want to comfort her. You want someone to be there for her. And a lot of the times it ends up being Poison Ivy. Poison Ivy is a phenomenal girlfriend for her, and I love it. They are just such a cute couple. But in all seriousness, it's like, that is a great example of a villain character who does notably villainous things, but someone you can get behind because you know their story, you have an actual reason to care for them, and to understand their strife, and to really get behind their low points. With Boxman, we have nothing. Oh, he's funny, and he's voiced by the guy who voices Tigger from Winnie the Pooh. I mean, and multiple other characters, but seriously, it's like, oh boy, that's not a reason to really feel sympathetic for this character here. Honestly, I kind of am on the level where it's like, I don't care. I don't care if he would have gotten fired. I don't care if he would have lost his company. It doesn't matter to me. And because of it, the episode felt completely uninteresting. It felt boring and a waste of time. The only really good thing about it was that we did get Shannon again. And the fact that Cosma is freaking adorable. Seriously. Like, I adore her design. But that episode was just, it wasn't good. There was nothing to get behind with it, and the entire point of the episode is ruined. Because you can't, there's nothing to back it up. But the second episode was a lot better. So, Boxman sends over a new robot, a new sibling to our main group, and this one's name apparently is Michaela. Michaela is animalistic, very cat-like specifically, doesn't really talk outside of saying her own name, and is just very feral and violent and kind of, I wouldn't say unintelligent. It definitely seems like she does have intelligence to her, but it's more along the lines of she's just, she doesn't like have a lot of like, I don't know how to put it. I don't know how to describe it. Again, I guess this is just the best way to say it, is she's animalistic. But either way, so our heroes are having a hard time defeating her, and in the end they have to eventually go to this kind of the creepy old man dude. I cannot remember his name right now, who we've seen again and again, who's just kind of weird and random and everything. And we find out he's a were animal. And we see Dendy. Dendy in Rad's van is hilarious, by the way. That entire little gag was hilarious. But Dendy tells them that really the only way they can defeat Michaela is to become were-animals. So they get this creepy, weird old guy to bite them, which he's way too happy to do. And they all turn into were-animals. Enid becomes a bunny, Rad becomes a cat, and KO becomes a puppy. All of which are extremely fitting. Enid is notably, let's be honest, Enid, with her design and everything, she has some thick thighs and legs. She's thick. Yeah. Not fat or anything. She just has very thick thighs and legs. It's very notable. And she uses her legs and feet to attack most of the time. So a rabbit actually makes sense for her, because rabbits are known for having strong back legs. So it works. Meanwhile, having Rad become a cat makes sense because we found out in the past that Rad has an affinity towards cats. It was that one episode where KO was like revealing the stuff about Rad and everything, the stuff he was trying to keep hidden, the stuff that made him view himself as soft and not cool enough. And one of the things, I believe, was that he liked cats and that he was really into cats. And cute, specifically like cute cats and stuff. And so it makes sense that he'd be a cat. And when he becomes a cat, instead of like something like he was imagining, he's just like, cool, I like this, I'm good with this. And I like that. It's continuity. And then, of course, KO becomes a puppy. It just makes sense. The way he's always following others around and kind of just trying to please them and be happy and cute all the time. Yeah, he's a puppy. So they defeat Michaela, and then they decide that they are just going to try to live it out. But they get fleas, and everything kind of goes wrong. So they try to get the creepy old man to bite them again, but find out that it won't really do anything. So they end up meeting this little bunny kid, who I guess has just been a character in the background or something. And she, we find out, is part of a group of reverse furries. Basically, they're animals who dress up in human costumes and pretend to be human and stuff. And here's the thing. I love that concept. I'm a casual furry myself. I'm mostly into the art and everything, and admittedly I do get into like furry characters from like different shows and stuff. I just mentioned Cosma from the first episode we watched today, so you get the idea there. And obviously with One Piece reactions lately, you may have noticed my love for Carrot. So yeah. But yeah, we see that there's this entire group who meets in the old video store. And yeah, they're just basically reverse furries, which I guess could be called skinnies? I don't know, fleshies? It doesn't sound right either way. And apparently one of them is Michaela herself. Michaela is there and offers to give them costumes. We see Michaela's wearing a shirt that says human, and I like that. I like the concept of one of these robots, one of Boxman's robot children, not wanting to be a robot, actually wishing she was human. That is a neat idea I never considered before. I like that. I legitimately really do. And so we have we have that concept. But then there comes to my issue with the episode. And I kind of mentioned this in when we were during the reaction. It ends with them having not solved anything. With them remaining these furry animal forms and just wearing costume versions of their old selves. Which literally does not solve the problem that they were having with fleas and all. Fleas would still be able to live on them. It solves nothing. Their animal instincts would still be there. And on top of just solving nothing, the episode just ends like that. And then the very next episode, they're back to normal. I hate that. I've always hated that. Because it's a continuity wrecker. It destroys continuity. Even if you believe that this episode, the next episode, the third one we're going to talk about, episode 28, even if you believe that that's not, like, in terms of the continuity and everything, even if you believe it doesn't take place right after the furry episode, it doesn't matter. By having that episode take place, come right after that, and having them be normal in it, right after showing that previous episode end with them as furries, it ruins the entire concept of the episode. It breaks continuity. It completely destroys it. And it overall hurts the quality of the furry episode. It drags it down, and it's a good episode otherwise. But the fact that it ends on that note and nothing is resolved, nothing ever comes out of it, and it probably won't be brought up again, it's really disappointing. And just, I've never liked that kind of thing. There's no payoff. Every setup has to have a payoff, and there was no payoff. So, yeah, that was my big problem with that. The third episode, on the other hand, this third episode was phenomenal. And here's the thing. You may remember when Dendy first appeared, when she debuted, her debut episode, I mentioned, was one of my all-time favorites. And I still stand by that. It's still one of my all-time favorites for this series. Because it tackled a real, legitimate, like, real-life issue in such a meaningful, emotional, and realistic way. By having Dendy be kind of the loner with no friends, because she's weird and kind of an outcast, and having KO befriend her and seeing how she just wants to connect with him and everything. This episode, for as long of a time it's been since we've seen Dendy before this set of episodes, this is the kind of episode I wanted since that one. The kind of follow-up to Dendy's character I wanted. First of all, we found out more about Dendy. Dendy is a kappa, which, if you know mythology, is Japanese water creature. I've heard some people refer to it as a water demon, but I've never really seen a kappa as a demon. It's a Japanese water creature, kind of like a duck in some ways. They're known for being green, having those, having like the brownish hair going in a circle around the top of their heads with the middle just completely bald. They usually have duck bills and stuff, things like that. They're also usually mischievous, and in a lot of the mythology are seen as being very aggressive towards people. So we see in this that part of the mythology does come forth in this version. Kappas are seen as being that way, even though that's actually, well, in and of itself, a myth that was created by others. And we see that because of this myth, Kappas have been discriminated against, even into the current day, to the point where they are not allowed to have POW cards just because of who they are, just because of what they are, making this a very real and very, just really, like, hard to watch allegory for racism. Like, not hard to watch in terms of, like, the quality of the episode. It was phenomenal, but hard to watch in terms that it's hard to see this kind of thing in any show you watch. And whether it be a live-action show, a cartoon, an anime, it's hard to see, or hard to watch something like this. Even if it's just an allegory, even if it's just using some kind of, like, fictional creature or something like that to display this. It's still racism. It's still discrimination. It's still bigotry. And they're initially going to throw away their POW cards because of the symbolic discrimination that POW cards basically represent. They are symbolic of the discrimination and racism, that was weird, that the Kappas have faced at the hands of pretty much everyone else. Which, in a world like this, is really harrowing, because we've seen that the characters in this world are extremely diverse. Like, almost no two characters look alike. Almost no two characters are anything like each other. Yes, we have multiple cases of human beings, but none of them are quite the same as each other. And most of these characters we see, there's so many different kinds of species and everything. So it's especially harrowing that in this very diverse world, you still have this kind of racism against the Kappas. We get to see Dendy's parents as they drive KO and Dendy to the POW card factory, because they decide they're not going to throw their cards into a volcano, because they feel that even though these have this established systematic bigotry associated with them, they still hold important meaning to us, and we can't just throw them away like that. We can't just destroy them like that. They're too important to us, personally. And that's a thing that a lot of people have kind of debated back and forth on, and I admit I've kind of had some issues with that in real life, where people say, like, oh, but the Confederate flag has importance to my family's history or stuff like that. And it's like, sometimes it gets to the point where it's like, okay, no, that was created as a symbol for racism. You have to have limits on that. That's all I can say. And we see that the limits should be there, but at the same time, there are cases where it's okay if it holds important meaning to you. Because again, these POW cards weren't created to be racist. The racism was kind of put into them, put into all of that. They weren't created for that purpose. So it's kind of a different scenario. And they choose to go to the POW card factory to find out why this is happening in the first place. So they end up breaking into the room where the cards are actually made, after defeating this giant statue of the founder of POW cards. But before they can actually do anything, the security guards come in, as well as the current CEO of the company, Mr. Cardsley, voiced, as I mentioned, by, oh my god, his name is escaping me now. Oh my god. It's like I couldn't think of his, I couldn't place who he was when I was watching, and now his name is just escaping me. I hate when that happens. Clancy Brown. So voiced by Clancy Brown, and Mr. Cardsley instantly made my shit list when he started talking about it. It's basically like, oh, why are Kappas kept out of this? And he's basically like, because Kappas haven't done anything to deserve it. Kappas, all they do is attack people. They're just, basically, he's saying they're menaces. And it's like, okay, you have made my shit list right away. And the fact that he's so nonchalant and so cocky about it, too. And in the end, they do convince him to give it a try, but he's more like, oh, you'll see. None of this computer, which finds and declares people worthy of being heroes and all, and puts those POW cards out there and everything, it's not going to find any Kappas really worthy, or at least not enough, basically. And then, after they get it in, thanks to Dendy's hacking skills and everything, whoosh! Just the amount of, like, let's say that the amount of dots, the amount of hero candidates, I guess, POW card candidates that were on the screen before, let's say it was 50%, it just shot up to probably 200%. That's how much of a increase it was. all of these Kappas who had been rejected for so long, all these POW cards are getting made, being sent out, sent out, like, I guess instantaneously somehow. Cartoon logic on that one. And apparently they're being snatched up really quickly, and people are just getting really excited about it. It's making the company shit tons of money. And so Mr. Cardsley's like, basically apologizes, saying, oh, I was wrong, you were right. And then he's like, oh, but we made a lot of money. And that was clearly his main focus about it. Which is kind of scummy, and I really still don't like him. But, I mean, I don't think you're really supposed to. And we see, in the end, Dendy gets her own POW card, and her reaction to it is so fucking precious. I was tearing up. Like, no joke. I was trying to hold it in, but I was tearing up. I was on the verge of crying. Because that was so precious and so pure and so beautiful. Dendy's just pure joy at receiving a POW card, at changing all of this, even if Mr. Cardsley's mind wasn't changed for the right reasons, it was still changed, and Kappas are now getting the respect they deserve. They're now being seen as true possible heroes. And everyone apparently is eating it up. Everyone's all good for it. And that's beautiful. But like I said during the reaction, I wish it worked this way in real life. The problem is it doesn't. You may convince one or two people, but there's still going to be countless and countless racists out there. Black people have to suffer so much every day. And even outside of just racism with black people, with Latino and Asian people, there's even just all this discrimination against other groups as well. Against people in the LGBT community. People who are killed, trans women who are killed just because they're trans. Black people who are victimized and killed by cops for doing literally nothing. And it's absolutely atrocious. And I wish people were this easy to convince about it. And I wish that convincing one person who maybe has power could turn around so many other people. But it, unfortunately, in real life isn't like that. This episode, in a way, was kind of a wish fulfillment fantasy. It was showing this action of these people who had been discriminated against, who had been horribly treated like shit for so long, finally getting the recognition and respect they deserve. But in real life, it's not like that. And I hate that it's not like that. And I'm not saying that this episode is bad for being unrealistic about it. I'm not saying that at all. I'm not saying this episode is even bad. I'm just saying that I really wish it could be like that. And I think that's what this episode was trying to tell us. That the world should be this way. To where these people who are discriminated against can just receive the respect and recognition they do deserve without having to go through all these hoops. Without having to fight all these fights and convince all these people. It should be this easy. But it's not. But every small step counts. Every small step we make to battle racism, to battle homophobia and transphobia, to battle discrimination in all its forms. Every small step we make counts. And every small step can make someone that much happier, just like we saw with Dendy. Can bring so much joy. every victory, no matter how small it is a victory. And that's what matters. And I think that's what this episode was trying to teach us. That we need to fight for this stuff. And that it's obvious we're not going to convince people as easily as Mr. Cardsley was convinced. And that it's not going to be that simple. But that we have to fight for it. That to make change, we have to keep fighting. And that one day we can make some little black child smile the way that Dendy did. Some trans child smile the way that Dendy did. And that's worth it. To know that they're being recognized, to know that they're being respected, is worth it. And that's why this episode was so fucking good to me. That's why I found this to be so good. Why it got me super emotional to the point where I was almost crying in the end. Because I'll just say it. I'm white. I am very privileged because of the color of my skin. And I hate that I am. And I hate that so many other people have to face much more horrible discrimination than I ever have or ever will. But I do everything in my power to try and change that. I constantly try to share everything I can in support of people of different color skin than me, of people of different sexualities and general orientations than me, of people who just have to go through all these struggles. I'm going to support them. I'm going to raise awareness. I'm going to do everything I can. Because I have this privilege. And I'm going to use it. I'm going to use this privilege for those who don't have it. And this episode meant so much to me because it validated that. It made me feel even more confident in that than ever before. And it's like, geez, why are all these Dendy episodes so meaningful? To me personally, especially. Why are all these Dendy episodes being so fucking emotional and deep? There have been times in this series where I have considered dropping it. There have been times where I've considered that it wasn't really going anywhere. But then you have episodes like last week's with TKO. You have episodes like this week's with the Dendy one, with the POW cards. And it shows that this series not only has potential, but that it's capitalizing on it. That it's giving these well thought out stories. And not every episode's going to be great. And I've said that in the past of any series. Not every episode will be great. Not every episode will even be good. But sometimes you have to ask yourself, is it worth it to get through those bad episodes as long as you know that there's good coming, as long as you know that this series will capitalize on its on everything it's been building up, on its potential? And I think yes. I think it is worth it for at least this show. Now, as I've said before, I don't believe that you should have to slog through a bunch of shit to get to the good stuff. And I stand by that. But there's a difference between having some really bad episodes every now and again and just straight up having shit constantly. Like, it's a difference from having bad episodes like the first one we had with this set of 3 and having a series be pretty much almost completely bad, like Scooby-Doo Mystery Inc., let's just say. with how horribly that handled its characters and everything. I just think that this show is definitely not just following the footsteps of Steven Universe. It's doing its own thing, but it definitely is following in that kind of style with its messages and beliefs. We already know we have LGBT characters in this series. We already know we have Dendy, a character who has been discriminated against just because of who she is and what she is, and we've seen her come back from that. We've seen her fight that. This series is doing wonderful things with its characters. And that's something that I feel really helps it stand apart from many other shows. Especially many other shows in this kind of style. But I want you to tell me what you thought, because I've been talking for over 30 minutes about this. I want you to tell me what you thought of these episodes of OKKO Let's Be Heroes. What did you think about Boxman's episode? Did you find that as boring and unenjoyable as I did? What did you think about the ending to the furry episode? And, of course, did you find as much meaning and emotion in No More POW Cards? Tell me your thoughts on all of that and more in the comments below, and thank you so much for tuning in. For now, I'm Connie, and I'm signing off. See y'all next time.
And though you've come through many obstacles,